Hey, I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 76. Before I get into that, I'd like to thank you guys for your donations. I was able to buy a new laptop finally, and get these noise-canceling headphones slash mic. So thank you guys for that. Another thing I'd like to tell you guys is I'm actually an aspiring author. I'm gonna I have a website up where you can like buy my stories or read free stories and whatnot. So if you want to check that out, just go to www.chrismoldong.com. It is not MMA related. This has to do with my writing and being an author and all that good stuff. So check that out if you can. Let's get to the fight card. Fight card was fun, even though they lost the main event and the co-main event. It was still a fun card. A lot of fights. There weren't too many grinders or some pretty cool finishes on here. Unexpected ones as well. A lot of prospects really stood out on this card as well. So that's really cool. I really liked what I saw out of Tom Breeze. I'm super high on this guy. Krzysztof Jotko looked greatly improved. I said he's somewhat unspectacular, but he's really improved. Stevie Ray still looking good. I was actually really impressed with Darren Till more than Dalby. I was actually probably more impressed with Till until that third round. And Luis Smolka, he's really coming up as well. So I'm really happy to see the progression of a lot of these prospects. My picks weren't too bad. 7 out of 10. The ones I missed were Gareth McClellan versus Bubba Bush, Krzysztof Jotko versus Scott Askham, and if you want to count it, Dalby versus Till, even though that went to a draw. As far as bonuses go, Darren Till and Nicholas Dalby got Fight of the Night, while Neil Seary and Tom Breeze got Performance of the Night honors. Let's get started. In the main event, Luis Smolka defeated Paddy Holohan by rear naked choke in the second round. Holohan was actually in good spirits at the post-fight interview, going so far as to say, I'm going to have a cup of tea, after this. He went too fast and too hard, and faded just way too early, really. He was getting hit too clean, especially in the second, I think the end of the first and second round. The problem with Holohan is he really doesn't have much process in his fighting style, in his striking especially. He doesn't throw the most technically sound strikes, and he's not defensively sound. Smolka is greatly improving his striking, I still think that he's, like in past fights, I've seen him in boxing range not look so good. He didn't look too bad here, though, so that's good. And on the ground, they were pretty even. Like Holohan would get the back or even get top control, and he could not hold it for long periods of time. Eventually, Smolka, I think he hit him with like what looks like a body kick or something. Excuse me. And then Smolka took Holohan down, ground and pounded, and eventually got that rear naked choke. Good stuff from Smolka. I think he's greatly improving. His loss in flyweights to Chris Carriasso. I think if they rematch, actually, Smolka would actually come out on top at this point. So for who should fight next, though, I'd like to see him get a step up in competition. Someone like maybe even Chico Camus, even though he's coming off a loss. Who else is at flyweight? I know Scoggins is fighting someone. Maybe like a Scoggins versus Smolka would be cool. I totally forgot who he's fighting. If you want to give him a really good step up, you can give him Dustin Ortiz. I think he's fighting someone too, and I forgot who. So there's good fights for Smolka, and actually I'm very much looking forward to seeing where he goes from here. With Paddy Holohan, he should just fight more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. He lost to Smolka. He's lost to Chris Kalades. He's good, but he's really flawed. And like I said, he's not super physical per se. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, in the first round, he's relentless, but, I think a lot of guys can kind of muscle him around. Next fight, I thought Norman Park defeated Reza Madadi by unanimous decision. I have to say, Norman Park fights just aren't very fun. It's just one of those things with Norman Park. He's a good striker, but he doesn't have knockout power. His takedown defense is really strong. It showed in this fight, and he does have a good ground game, but it's nothing about his skill set is like devastating. So he's a good fighter. He got a good win over Madadi, who came out real strong, real angry too. And Madadi, his stand up isn't that great. He's got a good wrestling pedigree, but he doesn't. In the cage, he's more about being relentless about getting takedowns than anything else, than like having really good technical takedowns. And he's getting a lot older too, and he's been away from the sport for like 2 years or something like that. So it's really tough to see. I don't see much career progression in the guy, to be honest with you. I think he can be a good talent. He'd be great for European cards and whatnot. I think he can beat the lower tier of the division relatively consistently. He's got a really good grappling game, but I just don't see him beating. I see him like beating some mid-tier guys and losing to some mid-tier guys. Norman Park, something of a return to form to him, since his loss to Ronaldo, and before that was like T-Bow. He looked good here. He was picking his shots, clinching against the cage, really taking advantage of when Reza Madadi he had his back up against the cage. That's when Norman Park was taking the most advantage. He's a good, solid fighter. Norman Park is, but like I said, he's not a standout fighter or anything like that. He beats some mid tiers and lose to some mid tier guys. That's really Norman Park in a nutshell to me. Just more lower to mid tier guys of the division for both guys. Next fight, that Nicholas Dalby and Darren Till fought to a majority draw. Fun fight. I like what I saw to Darren Till. I picked against him actually, and I think moving forward, I am going to pick against him less and less. He's a good prospect. He hits hard. I don't like his single shot selection that he does, but otherwise, he's good. Real strong kicks. He's good at timing opponents coming in, and that's how he got that uppercut going on. His takedown defense looks pretty good. I think he's probably going to need some more work there, but otherwise, I like what I saw from him. Dalby, what he did in the third round is what he needed to do in like the first or second. Just really go in there. I mean, obviously Till said he injured his shoulder, and that's why Dalby was able to really get ahead in that third round. I thought the draw was very well deserved. I thought Dalby did get a 10-8 in that third round. Dalby doesn't hit very hard. He is relatively high volume, and he always goes after his opponent. But I think what you see out of Dalby right now is pretty much what you get. He's solid. He's not a potent finisher, but he's a good, solid fighter. Who a lot of opponents I think are going to have a hard time against. And like I said, with Darren Till, he's pretty tall for the weight class, big. I see a promising future for him. I wasn't super high on him as a prospect, but I'm really coming around to him at this point. Like I said, I'm probably, if he fights more like mid-level guys and whatnot, I'm probably going to pick Till to win more than lose. Both these guys probably just fight more mid-level guys of the division. I think they're good enough to beat those guys. I'm not going to say names for the most part because it's like there's a bunch of mid-level welterweights he can fight. It's like, okay, there's Cote, Saunders, um, Steele, Cummins. I mean, I could just keep listing mid-tier guys. So there's no point in me saying like a particular guy per se. I'm just gonna say mid-level guys or lower-level guys for them to fight. Next right after that, Neil Seery defeated John De Los Reyes by guillotine in the second round. Seery said what he should have said, and the way he kind of fights. He's older. I think he's mid-30s, mid to late 30s, and he said in post-fight interview that he'll fight anyone. He kind of looks like the next Chris Lytle. Like, honest truth, he fights like Lytle, just like he doesn't give, he doesn't care, and just kind of goes in there and starts boxing with his opponent. He's always pushing forward. He's always game. And his ground game is something you can't underrate. You can get a good position on the guy. It's hard to keep good positions on the guy, and he can also reverse you as well. He's crafty, And I say this about Neil Seery all the time. I think it holds true. Watch out for his fights. For the most part, he can fight a low-level guy, mid-level guy, high-level guy. He has fun fights. Pickett. The Chris Bale fight was good. The Luis Smolka fight was good. This fight against De Los Reyes was good. He's just a fun action fighter at this point. And, the flyweight division can definitely use more of those guys. That's not a bad thing. I'd like to see Seery just fight more mid-level guys. De Los Reyes doesn't have the best record in the UFC, but he is a good fighter. I think he needs some work on his cardio. He hits hard. He's physically imposing as well. He's pretty big for the weight class. I think he has a lot of potential, but he is just getting some really tough competition. I mean, it's like the guys he lost to is like Dustin Kimura, who at the time was like a really good prospect. And then he fought like Horiguchi and got knocked out. It's like, yeah, of course, or, got blasted by Horiguchi. It's like no surprise. And then you're fighting guys like Neil Seery, who's just really strong veteran. It's like, and De Los Reyes is just a raw prospect at this point. I think there's potential in this guy. I can't really say. I don't know if there's top 10 potential. There's potential in this guy for sure for De Los Reyes, especially to be a fun action fighter at the very least. More lower tier guys for De Los Reyes moving forward. Okay, on the prelims, even though everything's on Fight Pass, Stevie Ray defeated Michael LeBeau by unanimous decision. Stevie Ray's, isn't he southpaw, right, or something like that? I think his left hand was just like finding the mark at all times. It was a good fight. Stevie Ray, he hits hard. He's steadily improving his game, and he looks good. I think he's a good prospect. I can't really say he's a standout prospect by any stretch of the imagination. It's he can grapple. He hits hard in his stand-up. He's technical enough. So this was a good win. I think he should get a step up in competition at this point. He beat like Mafra before this. Before that, he beat what was it one of the Martins, right? I think something like that. And then now he beat Michael LeBeau. So, he should probably get a step up in competition. What is this, at 155, right? Mid-level guys at 155. I'm thinking like Brazilian grinder type. Maybe a Leonardo Santos. Some of those guys that really test them. Masur Nduba versus Stevie Ray would be pretty cool as well. With Michael LeBeau, man, he barely stays in the UFC. I mean, he's a good prospect. He can strike well. His ground game's not too bad. But one thing about him, he's not the most potent finisher. He's technical, but he's not a true standout. I hope they keep him. He's a good fighter. I think there's something there with Michael here, but he is fighting some pretty tough guys. I mean, Sergio Moraes, he beat his last opponent, and now he's fighting Stevie Ray, who's an up and coming prospect. So these are all tough opponents. I hope they just get if he stays in the UFC, I hope they give him someone a bit easier. Nice fight that. Aisling Daly defeated Eric Almeida by unanimous decision. Third round wasn't too much to write home about. You have Almeida just like pulling guard and like not much happened. Daly would just in the beginning of the rounds would just go in there and do like a Diego Sanchez, no head movement, and just start like clinching or swinging or whatever. The thing with Daly is she's pretty much the perennial like journeywoman for the division. I mean, she is that tough out for like any prospect. If you're like a low level prospect, you're probably not going to beat Daly. But if you're a pretty good prospect, like a Ronda Marcos or something like that, or better, you'll probably beat Daly. But the thing with Daly is she's not super technical, but she will impose her will on you. She will come after you. She's super game. Big for the weight class as well. Erica Almeida, she fought Jutai before this, and now she's fighting Aisling Daly. So she's not getting easy opposition. I mean, it's 2 losses in a row, but I don't know why don't give her like the Heather Jo Clarks, the Beck Rawlings, the Seo Hee Hams, the who else? Just some like Kylan Curran, Emily Kagan. Like, give her some of those opponents. As I saw improvement here. Like, she is improving. She showed a good clinch game. Her clinch knees from the clinch were pretty strong. Her stand-up actually looks to be improving, and she already has a pretty good ground game. It's just that she's fighting these really tough and at times grinding opponents. I hope they keep her. She's got some potential too. She's only in her early 20s. Erica Almeida is. If give her the loser of I don't know. Give her like an Angela Hill even or something like that. There's a lot of like lower level opponents that Erica Almeida can fight. Instead they give her like the gatekeepers or like these tough outs. With Daly, though, I think she's just fighting more mid-level competition at this point. I'd like to actually see her get into the Paige Van Zandt raffle, if you will, Because I think she'd be a good but beatable test for someone like a Paige Van Zandt. She's lost to Penne. She's lost to Marcos. Who else can Daly fight? I mean, if you want to give her some more prospects, I suppose you can do that too. You can go Rose Namajunas versus Aisling Daly. That'd be pretty cool as well. So, Daly's definitely got a role in the division. Next fight, that Krzysztof Jotko defeated Scott Askin by split decision. I thought that Jotko deserved to win. I didn't know that he was a breakdancer. I think I mentioned before that I used to actually breakdance before I got into mixed martial arts. So it's pretty cool seeing him do baby windmills and whatnot. Yeah. So, but otherwise, great improvement from him. Good movement. He moved really well. His boxing looked pretty sharp. He's always been good in clinch. His offensive and especially his defensive wrestling is good. I'll still say that he's not a standout in any one aspect of MMA, but he's very well rounded. It's really tough to see how far up he can get up the ladder. He's not a potent finisher. Jotko is or isn't. But he's a good fighter and a solid enough prospect in the middleweight division that I can see him move up the ladder. If he can consistently beat the rank and file of the division, the Rafael Natals, the Tom Watsons, he lost to Seven Blood though. Just those type of opponents. I think he can actually reach that. I think there's definitely top 15 potential for Jotko at this point, just being as well-rounded as he is. I liked what I saw from him. Ask him, the problem with Ask him is like he only has like one game. I was really high on this guy. He's tall for the weight class, but the problem is like the only like really seriously powerful tool in his arsenal is like his knees. I mean, like obviously he has like uppercuts and like punches and whatnot, and he hits hard. Has some pretty good kicks. Defensively, he's still not that good, and he's not the best like technical boxer. And his takedown defense is a bit iffy. It's not terrible, but it's not that great either. I was pretty high on Scott Askham. I still think that he has potential to really move up there. He fought another just a good, more developed prospect and Krzysztof Jotko at this point of his career. So, I definitely think that there's still potential in him. But there's certain things that Askham's going to have to improve moving forward. Like I said, his overall boxing game I didn't like, and his overall grappling game probably needs some work too. Like offensive and defensive wrestling, it's not the greatest. But with Yatko, you know what? I'd like to see Yatko get like a half family towel or something like that, actually. And with Askham, it's more lower to mid tier guys at the division room. Next fight after that, Tom Breeze defeated Cathal Pendred by TKO in the first round. Yes, the thing with Cathal Pendred, he's tough, and for Breeze to knock him out in the first round is very telling. Breeze, when I saw him in the regional scene, was primarily a grappler, actually. Huge, he is humongous for the weight class, though. If Breeze wanted to fight at middleweight, he would not be undersized. The guy is 6'3", and he is like big for the weight class for welterweight. Like I think he'd be relative, a good, if not somewhat big for middleweight. His striking's improving. Is he southpaw or orthodox? But his cross, dude, he hit that double cross on Cathal to drop him and to fall ground and pound. Great stuff. I think Tom Breeze is doing some work in TriStar. His stand-up has been greatly improving. He is definitely a threat there now in the stand-up. And then he also has his grappling. He's a good wrestler, and his overall ground game is really strong as well. With Breeze, he needs to step up in competition. In middleweight, let's give him some of these lunch pail fighters. These blue collar guys like George Sullivan or Court McGee or Mike Pierce. I think Pierce fights LaFleur. Whenever that gets Breeze, that's pretty high up the ladder, but I think Breeze can actually pull it off. I'm really high on Tom Breeze. I think that he has top 10 potential, big for the weight class, well-rounded, really working on his striking, has power in his strikes now. He's patient, good prospect. Keep your eye out on Tom Breeze. Cathal Pendred, I'm not huge on Cathal Pendred. I think that he's more heart and resilience and actual skill. Striking isn't that good. His wrestling actually isn't that good. His elbow grappling and jiu-jitsu isn't too bad, but he's not a standout anywhere. He's big. He's tough. He makes fights real ugly. So finishing a guy like Pendred is pretty tough to do, especially in the first round. I think this is 2 losses in a row for him now, and I know he's not a huge favorite as far as his fighting style outside of Ireland and whatnot. I'm sure they'll probably keep him. He can probably beat more lower level guys, but I think a lot of guys at this point. At this point, I think if Pendred fights like more mid-level guys, he'll beat some, but I think he'll lose more than win. Next fight after that, Darren Elkins defeated Robert Whiteford by unanimous decision. Pretty much how I thought this fight would go, I thought Whiteford would have something of an advantage as far as technical striking and power goes. Elkins has some really bad striking. His feet aren't always in place. He gets off balance a lot of times in his striking, but he uses that to utilize his grinding clinch or his takedown and his really grinding top control. He's a guy that's always working. He's a top 15 guy, and he definitely is a good like gatekeeper type. Um, Quite the grinder. I mean, if you want to get Darren Atkins fight, expect if he's winning, it's because he's grinding out the victory. And that's fine. It is who he is. If you just kind of accept that, then yeah, it's not a problem. Whiteford, he's a good fighter and he's actually improving, but, I think he's like 32, 33 now. I wouldn't say he's a great prospect or anything of that nature, but he's a good fighter. But, he's one of those guys that's probably going to win 2, lose 1. He just seems like that type of fighter in the UFC. I think he can beat lower level guys pretty consistently. Mid level guys, I think he's going to have a hard time with. But he's a good fighter. He's a fun fighter. I like to see him just fight more lower to mid guys. With Elkins, I'd like to actually see him fight Nick Lentz. I think just stylistically, it's such an interesting fight. They're both like grinders, so I'd actually like to see him fight like someone like that. And finally, Gareth McClellan defeated Bubba Bush by TKO in the 3rd round. 2 seconds left of the fight. Really surprising outcome. I'm not gonna lie. I am not big on the guys from the South Africa scene, like the EFC guys and whatnot. Like McClellan's no exception. This fight didn't actually really prove to me too much. One thing about McClellan, his takedown defense isn't very good. His striking isn't that great. He's tough. He has good ground and pound as shown in this fight. I didn't realize how bad Bubba Bush's cardio was. I know there's some controversy because I think Bush is going for a takedown. McClellan holds a cage, and he pretty much just McClellan lands and mount. But I can see Bubba Bush getting cut after this fight. It's like he lost to Kevin Casey and Gareth McClellan, who are both like pretty low, kind of on the low end of middleweight. He's not a guy I can actually see Bush. I can't see him get consistent wins in the UFC, so I can't see him get cut. This fight with McClellan, though, I mean, at most, it just kept his job. It's not much I can say about the guy. I'm not high on him. It's nothing against him. It's just that, it's nothing against him personally. It just, from what I've seen out of his skill set, I can't really see him get consistent wins in the UFC. Nonetheless, he's just got more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. So that's it for my UFC Fight Night 76 post-fight analysis. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for You. Thank you guys very much.